wish to, and it was presented to the select board last night, and they gave their consent to it. We also have 3 A&Rs, which are not timed events. One for 681 George Hannum Rd for Downing, one at 577 North Gulf Road for Woodcock, and one on Rural Street for M&G Land Development, which is busy building a few houses down in that area. We also have any additions or discussion with consent of the members on items that might not be voted on. We have minutes, bills. I see no bills. Town plan report and a members report. So this is not a lot of work, and in theory we might all be out of here before it gets dark, which would be the goal. So the first one, we have a continued public hearing. We opened that public hearing on the revised subdivision regulations. Again, it was presented to the select board last night by myself and Mr. Albertson, and the select board had a few questions which they brought up, and we answered them. They did not indicate any specific issues that they felt would require them to become involved in the process, or might be cause for us to return for further deliberation or further revision. They made a vote to give their recommendation to the proposal as we've had it. So they did ask a couple of questions though, so obviously some of them had read it, thoroughly enough to be able to point out issues that they were concerned about, and which was good, that at least they were aware of what we're doing, and they weren't just passing through it. So we've got it back before us today, and the other things that we were still waiting were for some of the forms and appendices, Mr. Duggan.
Right, yeah, I've still not had a chance to get to those, but I'm gonna do it. It's only the forms that are left. We have everything else.
Well, we had talked about passing the regulation and then having the forms come in when they were ready, because the forms are nothing really more than just codifying the regulation.
Yeah.
And it's the regulation that we were concerned that we wanted to get out there. For example, we've already had one preliminary subdivision come in and get filed, where we're gonna have to now look at that one under the old set of regulations, because we hadn't passed the new set, and I'd like to get the new set officially out there. So if anybody does come to do business under it, I'm working under the new regulation and not the older one. We can start moving forward with all those various corrections and improvements that we had been hammering out over the last year or more. So with that, does anybody have anything that they still want to bring forward with the regulations as they've been presented, as things that still need discussion or revision, issues, anything that they would like to continue to hammer out? Elizabeth?
I don't know.
Michael?
I'm good.
You?
Satisfied.
Leonard? Everybody's satisfied? I'll make a motion then that we approve.
Close the public hearing?
Oh, I need to close the public hearing because I also,
Is there anybody in the public universe?
I don't see anybody up there besides us.
Do we have anybody in the audience that wants to comment?
Make a motion to close the public hearing on review of the revised subdivision regulations.
Second motion.
Motion's seconded by Leonard. Motion made and seconded. For discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll move it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let the record show 5-0-0. They're done. The history. We're going to move forward.
That was just a public hearing.
That was the public hearing. What I'm still looking for is the my version of them, because I wanted to. What is the nomenclature I want to put on this?
Well, it's, the date on it is June 14, 2025. That's when I last touched anything.
2/14,
June.
6/14,
Yeah.
2025 is the latest version that's in front of us.
Yep.
All right. That's what I was just looking for up here, I don't know where I put the thing. So I know I brought it with me. And I've got a folder on it.
It's also identified as draft 13.
The one in the file says May 14th, not June 14th.
June 14th is the
June
most
14th?
current, yeah. But,
So you made, it was on the agenda to continue it on the agenda for the 10th, but you probably went in and did something after
yeah,
that.
because you had discussed Mike's thing about, whatever it was, yeah.
It was a,
The signs,
Oh, the
the signs
illusory.
being permanent,
It's illusory, yeah.
Like, I can't put my hands on it, is there a separate draft dated June 14th?
Yeah. Want it?
Well, you can stick that in the file, okay? So we don't have the one dated the 15th of,
Okay.
in May. Alright, now I'll make a motion that we approve the revised subdivision regulations as last drafted dated June 14th, 2025. And I need a second on that.
I will second that one.
Michael is seconded, any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll move to a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Now, it's 500, and
Thank you.
subdivision
It's only
regulations that
been on my mind for 10 years.
we've been talking about for so long is now official, and you're gonna get that other document in this folder. Now, we've got 3 A&Rs. Let's tear it. First one is 681 George Hannum Rd. And I'm gonna have the model out for you. Mr. Doug, could you give us, the big picture?
All right. This one is one big lot that takes a little building lot out of the corner down here.
So, it's on the east side of George Hannum or the west side of George Hannum?
It's on the
Granby is that way.
the northwest side.
Rural is right here.
So it's on the,
Oh, in fact, there's the locus.
yeah, I'm looking at it, I'm trying to get my directions, it's on the left, no, it's on the right, as you're going down George Hannum.
From Stop and Shop, it'll be on your left. Stop and Shop is up here.
so if you're heading towards Granby, it's on the left.
Correct.
All right, that's what I thought so, because I drove down there, and that's where I thought I had located the property. And just the way the map, I'm trying to orient it now, it makes it look like it's on the right side of the road. It's not, it's on the left. And that house, 681, is a fairly new construction house. That's just been built in the last few years. As a matter of fact, it looks like maybe only a year old, something like that. And it's a big lot.
Yeah.
And it's all wooded,
Yes.
and this is up in the corner of it as you're driving back towards town.
Correct.
Now, that somebody actually started to clear a little part of that, so I'm pretty sure I had myself located exactly where it's going to be. It's awfully, well, it's wet in here, it's also very sloped from this way down. So they would have to get a building envelope in the front of it, but it appears to conform in any other way. It's 140 feet frontage on a public way, and the boundaries are all clearly identified. It's next to Kirk Stevens, all the abutters are identified. Locus is on the upper left. The owner's identification is in the lower right,
Right here,
and
north arrow.
conforms. The application is by James and Amy Downing. They both signed it. Their application is complete and appears to describe what's on the plan. My buddies Sherman and Frederick did the surveying work on this. We are very familiar with, and they do a lot of work in town. And to all intents and purposes, appears to be a conforming A&R, so I'll make a motion to approve the A&R for James and Amy Downing for map 241, which is existing lot 18.02, being reconfigured as B1 and B1 revised, which is the remaining land.
Just be revised.
Say again?
I think it's just be revised.
B1 and B revised.
It's B1 and B revised.
Yep.
I didn't say that.
You called it B1 revised.
Okay, correct. It's B revised. Motion's made. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Bjorn. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion?
The only discussion I'd like to add is that, in the opinion of the board, the frontage is not illusory, that it is adequate for its intent.
That was, yeah, it was,
Even though there's wetlands over here, we still have good
Right.
quality access.
there was a building envelope in the front of that property.
Yeah.
Very clearly, and you can see where somebody had been trying to open it up, so it was easier to see in there. They cut down some of the vegetation.
And easily accessible to public service vehicles.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll move it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let the record show 500. You've got the Mylar.
We are required to use a black pen and only a black pen in signing the Mylar. Did we go through that?
Yeah.
We did.
It's a fun fact.
Funny, our third A&R is just like this.
Lost every day. Use this one for now. And then we've got another one. Oops, that's right. Mr. Doug, could you give Just the big picture on this one.
This one's wicked simple. Right now, lot B1 and B2 are one parcel, and the property owner is just slicing them in two, that in line.
I had asked, Leonard to work
Sure.
on,
So I'm gonna take this one.
oh, I'm sorry, I got it reversed on it. Leonard was gonna do, Rural Street, and you were gonna do golf, it's the paperwork. Gee, this is the, oh, I've got them all.
Starting with the application, we have Hillary Woodcock, we have the engineering survey, we have one lot creating two lots. And I noticed even on this form, the surveyor is merely quoting the requirement in terms of frontage and minimum area and proposed widths, as opposed to what the reality is, Mr. Dunn. Just whatever. We have the signature of the owner and applicant. Looking at the Mylar itself, looking at the drawing itself, we have the locus in the upper left, we have the north arrow, we have the owner of record. Down here, we have all of the abutters identified. We have the surveyor's stamp and signature. The frontage is in excess of the required 140 feet, and appears to be not illusory but adequate in access. Square footage is greater than 40,000 square feet. Everything looks like it complies and comports with our requirements. I will make a motion that we endorse the A&R for Hillary Woodcock on map 202 lot 18.01 for the purposes of creating lot B1 and lot B2. Second motion. Any discussion? Any issues?
I drove out and took a look at it. The one that says Michael Henson, there's a big old house there, right?
Correct.
And then these two lots are fully wooded, and they pitch down. It looks like it's gonna be sort of a rough area, but I can't tell because it's so, thoroughly vegetated back in there. But there was no impediments to opening it up, and no illusory.
There's an issue with your Apple Music account. To resolve this, check that your account is up to date in the Settings app.
You know, I've got that thing turned off. Why did it do that? Excuse me. There's no illusory elements in play here, so.
Any other discussion?
No.
Do you want to do the vote, or do you want me to? You
No.
do the vote.
All right, I'll do the vote.
So I made the motion, it's been seconded by Len.
Motion's made and seconded, and we've had our discussion period, so I'll move it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let the record show 500. Take down to you. So I've never been Zoom bombed before either. They were talking about that at the select board meeting because it happened also to the communications
Yes.
committee.
And people on that committee were.
So two committees got bombed. Pass that down. piece of business and I haven't even gone a half hour. It's Rural Street on A&R, another minor subdivision review for Rural Street, map 241, lot 22, applicant is M&G Land Development LLC. They've been before us a couple of times for properties down there, so they have another action before us, and we had asked Leonard Billadu to make the review tonight on this one. So, Leonard, take it away.
Okay, so the application, you have M&G Land Development, 177 Chevy Avenue. Owner of the property, Gary and Roxanne Layden, Springfield, Massachusetts. Application is not signed by the applicants. It is signed by the property owners. We do have a north arrow. We have the north arrow, we have the locus, we have the abutters, we have the owner of record, it is signed by the surveyor. Again, the application is not signed by the applicant, it is only signed by the owner. So what it appears to be is that they missed their setbacks, so they're taking a little piece of property to make things right, is what the appearance is.
Right, that's what the plan is.
I took a drive out there and I took a picture of that. Does anybody want to see it?
Sure. So presumably that foundation is already in,
Yeah.
and that's, and
It's
they,
definitely
Oh, it's more than a foundation.
oh. Oh,
House is all
it's a
framed.
framed house.
Yeah.
Thank you for.
So they've sort of got their money on the line, and now they've discovered a problem. At least that's what we surmise at this point
Yeah.
from the survey itself, is because they're on an estate lot. Everything else all set to go?
Everything else is good on the property.
So I can't remember what we usually, I mean, it's not the first time the right person hasn't signed it. How would we usually handle that?
You can authorize your single signature to sign it once,
To sign it after,
sign the
the
plan
applicant
after the
has-
applicant does that, that's probably the thing to do.
Right,
So the owner of record is the critical one, right?
Right,
I mean, you're not gonna take land away from somebody without their permission.
right.
The owner of record is critical. The applicant's signature, is that a requirement?
Well,
It says right on the application.
it's on our
required.
application, but,
Okay,
yeah,
then, good catch.
yeah, that was. So we'll do it that way, so you can have, it's you, right, Mike?
Correct.
Yeah, so you can authorize Mike to sign it once the application's signed.
So I guess I'll make a motion that we accept the application, the A&R as is, waiting for the signature from the applicant. And will be signed off by our single signatory.
And we have to vote to authorize a single signatory. And
Well, you can appoint him to do that, but you still wanna vote to endorse the A and R.
we're gonna vote to endorse the A&R and then appoint the single signatory.
Yeah, something
Okay.
like that, yeah.
I'll second the endorsement.
All right, so the motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Record show 500. We'll sign it up and then I'll appoint our single signatory, who is Michael again, to well, if you're signing it, you're not gonna sign it.
Not gonna sign it
Not
tonight,
gonna
no.
sign
You can wrap it up, and then when the applicant signs it, we'll let Mr. Hoffman know, and he can come in at his leisure.
Well, I'm glad we have a story
Now,
to that.
in this case, whoever comes in to sign it needs to bring with them proof that they are an authorized signature. It's not your responsibility, in my mind,
Yeah.
it's not your responsibility to go chase that down. That they're authorized to sign on behalf of the corporation.
Right.
So if it had been just a simple name, that wouldn't be an issue.
Correct. If it's a
It's a
name, if
corporate
it's a name,
name.
it's a name. But if it's a corporation, we have to know that they're authorized to sign on behalf of that corporation. Very messy, Jackie, I apologize.
It's appropriate for that one.
All right. For business, we do need to look at our minutes. The minutes were prepared and sent out to everybody in advance. There was a correction on it that was incorporated and sent out as a revised set of minutes. I'm assuming everybody saw that. So this is the final one now with the revisions in it. And I've got the minutes of June 24, 2025. Does anybody have any further edits, deletions, changes that they want to make in the minutes as are before us? Hearing none, I'll move it to a vote. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as written, and I need a second to that.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Elizabeth. Motion made and seconded. Further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll move it right to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show 5-0-0. And we'll circulate the minutes. Before we go to just an additional discussion item, before we go to the town planner report, the select board reorganizes every year, and they reorganize which members are going to be liaisons to which boards and committees every year too. I thought that John Ritter was going to be ours, and that's not what happened. I don't know if anybody else was looking at the liaison's duties, but
I just noticed that he
we're
wasn't.
back before Jennifer Turner
Oh.
Yes.
is going to be our liaisons once again. And she has been before for at least the last year. I don't know if before that.
Not
maybe.
last year, but previous 3 or 4 years.
Been with us for a while as the liaisons. So it's not Mr. Ritter. I just wanted everybody to know about that. And we'll turn it over to the town planner report.
Oh, briefly, we welcome Alex back, and he and our other intern, Austin, are going to be working with PVPC on our master plan project.
Excellent.
Updating the website and such, so we're looking forward to that. The Regional Energy Manager project, which is a grant PVPC secured, and so now there are like a dozen towns or so that are going to share a regional energy manager to help them sort of reduce their energy use in their buildings, their fleets, that sort of thing. So we had our first meeting with the consultant. It's going to do that today, in fact. So it's a company called NV5. They're somewhere in the east, I don't know where, over there. And so they asked us a bunch of questions about things that have been done for efficiency under the Green Communities Act and a bunch of other stuff. And they'll get a sense of what our needs are. They'll come and tour things eventually, and you know, the idea then in the end is to advise us on how to use less energy, more efficiency measures. Do that tomorrow. The Massachusetts Recreational Trail Advisory Board are going to have their quarterly meeting. I think it's quarterly, it might be monthly. Here. They want to see the Lake Wallace Sensory Trail. They've invested heavily in it, at least 3 times. So we want to show it off to them. And we also have another application before them for the backside of Lake Wallace, which will not be a sensory trail, but it'll have a couple of new bridges and some regrading to make it a little better and more presentable for the general public. And then we also have yet another grant for the application for the rail trail, which several years ago got a $300,000 grant from them for some engineering studies. The big issue is the bridge that goes over Japers Brook. So, you know, we don't want Bjorn and his dog falling through. And
dodge the holes in that thing. Impressive.
So, you know, we're going to do it for him. But anyway, they've applied for more money to actually do the repairs. So, you know, this organization, it's made up of volunteers who are involved with different types of things all over the state. And they, I think, have rightfully found Belchertown a good investment, and we're going to make sure they keep it that way. So anyway, they're having their meeting. I'm going to tour them around with Louise Levy, who is the head of the Friends of the Lake Wallace Trail Group. And if you don't know Louise, you should, because she's as enthusiastic and knowledgeable as possible. She retired last year as a high school biology teacher. And I had to say that I almost wish I could go back to high school just so I could have had her as my teacher, because she would have made it fun. And so anyway, she's going to wow them. Last week we met out there with a different granting agency from the state, from the Rural Development Fund. They also gave us a big chunk of money for the sensory trail, but they have also invested in some of the EDIC's projects. And we have 1 or 2 grants before them, applications before them again. Anyway, their sort of grant manager person came out with a couple of her interns. You should have been there. And they're female. Anyway. So anyway, they came out, and Louise wowed them. We also had, who was there? Jen Turner, Kyle Thibault from the rec department, Linda Leduc, DPW, and wherever you are, forgive me for not remembering, but we had a bunch of people there anyway, and they were, I think they were blown away. We toured them through the Tadgel building, and then walked the sensory trail. So they were there for about an hour and a half, and boy, it was not even a half hour later, I got a very grateful email from the grant person. So she must have gotten on her phone in her car and told us how amazed she was, and so we're looking good. But a lot of that's on Louise. Her enthusiasm is infectious. The wayfinding project is complete. That consultant presented it to the select board last night, and so tomorrow I will hit the button to send an application from the Mass Office of Tourism and Travel, or is it Travel and Tourism? I guess you have to travel first to become a tourist. It's a logic problem. So I'll send that, and that's going to be to apply for money to buy the manufacture and buy the signs, and then to have them installed, as well as a kiosk. And also, while I was at the select board meeting last night, the conservation administrator was here to discuss 4 donations of property for conservation. It's not all that, groundbreaking. Only one of them one of them is substantial size, but it's mostly wetland. But we did walk around it with the owner and his daughter. And it is very important to them that this go to the Conservation Commission because, the daughter and her siblings grew up there in these woods, and it was their place to connect with their souls. And so there's that one. I think it's 26 acres. It's off Granby Road. I'll try to remember to send out a map. And let's see, what else? One of them is an impossible piece of little scrap of land that is wedged between Amherst Road, the railroad. It's about an acre. And then on the sides, the Holland Glen Forest Conservation Area and the Wentworth Conservation Area. And there's a little rundown shack on it, and then it drops down very quickly to mostly wetland, and the owner hasn't paid taxes in a while, but she's finally caught up because all this is going on. And the tax collector's saying, it's going to cost me more to process this through as a taking than we could ever get out of it, because it's, and so we're saving money this way by having it donated, so you can attach it to a conservation of your choice, area of your choice. 2 parcels owned by Richard Green on Ware Road as part of his bigger development. There were the Village Green condos. Those were built in the 80s. But since then, he had the mini golf and driving range, which has been converted into a solar field and the flooring store. And he has added the old Sawmill Road subdivision. And I think his stepson or whoever it is planning to continue the condo project someday, which was rezoned probably about 8 years ago for that. So anyway, through that natural heritage of the sort of the organization of the part of the state government that protects wildlife habitat, determined that this was an area for, I believe, the wood turtle, and so he was required to set aside a certain amount of land for protection of that, and so that is going to the Conservation Commission. And the 4th one is a piece of backland that abuts an existing conservation area off of North Washington Street, which is a straight donation because there's no frontage. So that happened, and after that was done, I left the meeting and went home and had dinner, and my life was good. So I'm done. Thank you.
Before I move on to the others, I got a question that might require some research. if you have somebody in town and they own multiple parcels, and they're tax delinquent on, let's say, one of those parcels, but then they apply for a permit for some reason, it's an actual item, actionable item before us on another parcel where the taxes are paid. Is the fact that they're delinquent to the town in some aspect on one of their parcels preclude them from getting a permit on that other parcel?
Yes. Yes,
That makes sense.
Any permit granting authority, with the few exceptions that are listed on the collector's sheet, is supposed to say, pay your taxes and then we'll consider your application. Now, remember, an A&R is not a permit. By definition, it is approval not required. But a subdivision is a permit.
So,
Well, we might have a subdivision coming in here
Yes.
shortly, because we had a presentation of preliminary subdivision last meeting,
Yep.
and we just got the new 25 list of tax delinquencies in town. And there's 2 names on that list that would also be on that subdivision plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to ask that up front.
That's good.
Is that something that we should be communicating to the prospectives
Yes.
to make sure that they don't step into that trap?
Yep. We can go to that right now.
And I noticed M&G Development is on this list, but it's an A&R, as you
Yeah.
say. We wouldn't be, it's not a permit. It's an action that we're
Yep.
taking, not a permit. So it doesn't fall underneath that. Okay. I thought that, it might have to be researched, that's why I wanted to get it out
No.
now. Do you know that off the top of your head?
It's that particular chunk of state law that the town adopted years ago.
Okay, Leonard, is there anything that you'd like to share with the board tonight? Leonard, is there anything you'd like to share with us?
I'm not sure.
Michael, is there anything you'd like to share? Elizabeth? Ally?
actually,
Okay, Rebecca?
this is more a question for you, Doug, and I don't even know if you know the answer, but there was an article in the Gazette about the retraction of a grant to Mass Audubon for a 10,000 acre plan on the west side of the Connecticut. But in the listing of the towns that were gonna be adversely affected by it was Belchertown. And I wondered, since it's land to the west of the Connecticut that the grant was for, I was curious.
We don't have any
Why-
specifics, but I suppose they just kind of threw us in there because we're in Kestrel's range and our local land trust, and so they threw us in the list, but I really don't know that article.
But it was certainly not a comprehensive, like all the Pioneer Valley,
No.
it was a dozen or so. and-
No, I mean, there's a big project for the west side of the river with like 10,000 acres involved, throughout numerous towns, hundreds of different property owners, I think. And that doesn't affect us directly,
I didn't think it would on account of being on the west side of the
Yeah.
river, but there we were, so
Yeah.
I was curious. Thank you, that's all.
And Alex was okay. Now, I got a letter here that was in front of me when I walked in. It's from somebody that lives in off of Old Bay in that area of the Cutchins property where we put in that small residential educational facility for young adults that have developmental issues. And it's a complaint letter. It isn't sent to us, though. It was sent to the executive director of the Cutchins program, but they sent a copy to us, so obviously they want us to know that they're not happy. And I want to make sure that this gets copied and then sent to all the members of the board, so everybody
Yep.
gets to see it also, so
Yeah, it just came in this afternoon.
I'll turn that back in with their paperwork, so everybody knows that the fan mail is coming. And obviously, it was over issues that they want us to know about, that they were complaining about when the initial approval was put forth, so. I'm assuming they wanna point out to us the error of our ways. And I don't have anything else, so unless anybody else has anything we're gonna be done within an hour, we didn't hit the natal accomplishment of the shortest meeting possible, but still presentable. I can go home a day late, and I'll make a motion then to adjourn the meeting. It's seconded by Elizabeth. Motion made and seconded, no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Records, for the record, it's 500. Adjourn the meeting. Mary Ann, you can turn the recording off. Anybody